President Marcos's first 100 days in office is about to draw to a close. Let's get business and investment insights from the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines. And joining us now is FINEX President Michael Guarin. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. How upbeat or downbeat is FINEX on the country's investment potential under the Marcos administration?
First of all, Rico, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. We are definitely very positive in terms of the actions that the Marcos government has been taking. I guess, again, putting things in the proper context, I mean, first 100 days, that's less than 4% of his total term. But at least this early, we've already seen him trying to put in place the proper people in the right position, in the key positions. So that's one very strong positive note as far as his term is concerned. And then, as you know, his SONA was well received. And it's good that he was able to structure and then share their 8-point socioeconomic agenda,
right,
which at least gives us a better idea, right, on things that he wants to happen both short-term and then long-term.
Michael, over the past month, we've seen President Marcos Jr. make international trips to Indonesia, Singapore, and the United States. And billions of dollars were promised in pledges. How soon do you think will this translate into real investments, hard cash, and create jobs for our kababayans?
Well, it would really depend on the investment type. If you look at his Indonesian and Singaporean trip, around $14 billion, right, in pledges. But again, depending on the sector that was promised, part of the promises would be investments in renewable energy, in data centers, which would have a positive effect on telcos. So realistically, obviously it won't be immediate, but we're hoping that hard cash, so to speak, would come in within the next 12 months. So although, you know, without being privy to those specific pledges, obviously that would be an estimate on our part, Rico.
Michael, but during the first 100 days, which will be on October 8th, we've seen a spate of negative developments also materializing. You have just today 2 cabinet resignations. Over the past week, we've also seen several cabinet resignations. A radio journalist has been killed yesterday. And then we had a sugar fiasco as well early in the administration. Could this impact the foreign investment sentiment? Because this is going to be highlighted in the foreign media.
For sure, to the extent that it will affect, number one, perception and maybe interest in the country, it's definitely a yes. But nonetheless, we should always look at things right from both sides. I don't think the Philippine government, whether we're at the start of someone's term, in the middle or the end, has been free, you know, from issues, be it political, agricultural, or even societal in nature. So, unfortunately, it happened within the first 100 days. But again, we need to take it with a grain of salt. And number one, as you mentioned, addressing them one by one, right? Despite having resignations from key appointments, you can see the, I guess, commitment by BBM in trying to reappoint, right? So in parallel with that news, he is trying to reappoint the proper people, which includes secretaries within the major departments. So we can list those names, but you know, setbacks will always happen. But it's good that the direction is clear. One message that he's saying is that he knows that he wants these people in key positions, and he's willing to go there. And then number two, understandably, there are issues. But let's wait and see, right? Whenever there's a problem that arises, what's important is how the person, or in this case, how the government tries to resolve, you know, understand what's really happening, and then try to come up with proper solutions. So that aspect of the situation, I'm more interested in.
And Michael, no, towards the end of the Duterte administration, we saw Congress liberalizing some key business laws, from the Public Service Act to the Foreign Investments Act and the Retail Liberalization Act. Have we seen investors in the first 100 days taking advantage of these liberalized laws to invest in the Philippines?
From our personal view, not necessarily yet. There have been, my day job, as you know, is with KPMG as well. And within FINEX, there are a lot of consultants, firms, and advisory companies, including law firms. So we've been seeing an increased level of interest in the Philippines. I mean, we need to remember, probably less than between 8 to 9 years ago, we're not necessarily in the crosshairs of private equity investors, of regional investors. But the fact that there's a lot of interest, as well as new investments that are coming in, I mean, it bodes well, no, for the country, and it shows that they're reading up and they're keeping themselves updated on what's happening and what the opportunities are in the country, and they're just positioning themselves, and waiting for the proper time to strike, so to speak.
Michael, FINEX is currently holding its annual conference. It's taking place until October 7th. I'm sure a lot of the executives there are discussing what we want the president to table and to move forward on in the next 100 days and over the next 6 years. What are these priorities?
Yes. Well, first of all, he needs to be, the dear president needs to be consistent with his messages, right? So now that he has shared his 8-point socioeconomic agenda, we'd like to see how the government, under his leadership, can actually roll out, the actual measures, the execution, so to speak, on matters that affects health, food security, infrastructure. But in FINEX, we always try to focus on two things, right? At the end of the day, we want the country to be more competitive relative to the other nations in Asia and in the world. That's number one. And then number two, being a Filipino, we'd like everyone's prosperity to rise up together with the world. So as long we're closely monitoring, I guess, activities and initiatives that would affect, at the end of the day, would affect those two things for the Philippines and for Filipinos. So anything related to that, anything that contributes to that, we're definitely supporting that. And, the devil is in the details. So in addition, we'll definitely be looking at the details as well, together with the rest of the business community.
And Michael, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, during the first 100 days, how would you rate the Marcos Jr. administration?
I would rate it from 6.5 to 7. Number one, before the elections, we've been saying that the proper people should be put in place. So right now, the economic team, well, some of them were not necessarily confirmed by the appointments team, but at least we know who the government is pushing to handle the position. And number two, again, the government has been sharing things that the investors and market would support and go behind. So those would be the reason why it's a passing grade.
Right.
And obviously it's not a 10 because it's too early. As I mentioned, we don't necessarily give a good grade to someone who's only been in the job for less than 5% of the total term, so to speak.
6.5 out of 10, a passing grade for the Marcos Jr. administration in the first 100 days. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word, FINEX President Michael Guarin.